Hey Luke, good to see you again.
Great to see you, Tom. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Really keen to speak to you today about performance and your role as a high performance coach. And working with you over the last 5 years has massively helped me. But um, as you know, we work with business owners and people in high pressure positions. So I think the next 10, 15 minutes would be really good for them to hear from you. Really, what could they do to get through what is looking likely to be a very volatile and difficult 2026.
Well, hopefully, I can say some helpful stuff, right, and give you some value from these dulcet northern tones.
Oh, perfect. Give us a bit of background on sort of how you fell into this. Like, what did you do to get you into your own business and start running your own?
Cool. So, I'll try and give you a relatively short whistle stop because it's one of those ones. It could be quite a long one. So, bit about me. So, I did. Like, I'll rewind a little bit of a CV. So, I did philosophy at uni. Graduated in 2006. I had like a sales type job throughout that to pay my way. I was doing telesales, working for Tesco Car Insurance, so sort of paid to pay my way through. Um, Graduated in 2006. To be honest, I thought at the time philosophy was a load of bollocks. It's just like I did an eeny, meeny, miny, mo of how I picked my degree. I just sort of was the first person in my family to go to uni. But like, right, that's what I'll do. Um, Funnily, come full circle with what I do now in my business. It's kind of integral to the whole thing. But at the time, I thought it was rubbish. Graduated in 2006, and at the time that was before the first big financial crash in 2008, and so it felt like there was jobs everywhere. I had a bit of experience on my CV. Got a job at Estates Gazette selling ad space. That morphed into a more senior job at JC selling ad space. That sort of migrated into a marketing, sales, account directory hybrid role. Got poached by an agency, was an account director. This is a very fast whistle stop, by the way. And then eventually, we ended up being kind of account/project director at a large independent agency. Always taking care of myself physically, looked after myself physically. But at the time, that would have been back in 2014, 15, working flat out, good money, pretty stressed, not very happy, crazy hours. And then my wife, Kate, was pregnant with our first son, Nino. And at the 20-week scan, we found out he was diagnosed with a condition called transposition of the great arteries, which is a heart condition, which means without surgery to correct it, you die. It's like 100% life limiting. And they've only been able to correct it in the last like 15, 20 years. And ultimately, what the condition is, your pulmonary artery and your aorta is switched the wrong way around. So it means if you take a breath to oxygenate your blood, your body doesn't oxygenate. So you can't live, essentially. So that was a pretty big wake up call, like bloody hell. That was back in November 2020. 2015. And so I was like stressed out of my head, not happy at this job, don't know what's going to happen with this baby coming, whether he's going to survive or not, or what's going to. I was like, I don't want to be this person I am right now. I'm not happy. So I said to my wife at the time, right, I'm going to quit my job, pretend to be a PT, a personal trainer, because I love training. She was like, go on then. So I did. Nina was born in 2016 February. He was with us for like the first week in hospital. Then we went home for a couple of weeks. Did a procedure on him to mean that he could sort of actually survive a little bit longer. And then at 9 weeks old, he had 11 hours open heart surgery to correct his condition. Luckily, it went amazingly well. We were painting actually a pretty bleak picture, but actually it went amazing. It's like, imagine like the best plumbing job you've ever had, right? That's what happened. And so
Yeah.
he's now he just had his 10th birthday, a little 10-year-old tank with a really cool scar. So that's an amazing story. But that was the catalyst really for me kind of changing what I was doing. I wasn't happy. And so at the time, I sort of built up a pretty decent in-person personal training business in a local private weightlifting gym. And very quickly talking to people and working with people, realised actually a lot of what they want to help with isn't just training really. They want to lose a bit of weight and feel better about themselves. So I did a nutrition qualification. That then realised actually it's not just about what goes in your mouth and how you move your body. There's other stuff going on. So I did lots of like personal development, business development. Quickly as well, I had people start to contact me saying, "Oh, could you help me online?" And so I morphed the business online, stepped out of the gym. And then over time, it kind of evolved into what started off as more fitness to more performance focused, work life balance, holistically looking at stuff, and then eventually starting to work more exclusively with guys who were kind of in a similar situation to I was back when I first started the whole thing. And so probably in its current guise of the business, it's called the 1%. Really, it's over the last 5 to 6 years, it's really been in its current format, and that's kind of how I evolved into doing what I do now. I work pretty much exclusively online. The clients I work with is mainly men, although I do have female clients, and I've got a corporate offering where, of course, there's female clients as well, but it's majority of men from a front-facing business. And the usual story is kind of like late 30s through to early 50s, career absolutely booming, doing pretty well, from a career perspective, but the work-life balance is off, not happy and content at home, burning the candle at both ends, usually physically not in a great spot, but not always. And this, the most common thing I hear is, it's all great on paper, I've got everything I want, but, and the but is not happy, not content, not present for the wife and kids. And there's a spectrum of this, right? Some guys more worse than others. Um, but one of the most common things I hear as well is something like, I'm not depressed, but, or it's not like I'm going to get divorced. I was like, my point is, that's the bar, is it? So like, not divorced or not depressed. And I don't say that in a judgmental way, but I think often people get to a point where they're doing all this stuff and they're really busy and hectic, but they're not really happy in themselves. And so really, that's the kind of my client base, and that's the guys that I work with. And I've got a whole couple of group coaching programs and one-to-one stuff where I help empower them to build up healthy habits and behaviors, but also look at the stuff that's keeping them stuck in the first place. And it's kind of putting those bits together. Is that a good whistle stop as to me and where I'm at?
Yeah, mate, I think that's a really good description as well of what you do. I suppose like we work with CFOs, FDs, business owners who are significantly stressed, like even in the good times. And as owning your own business, now we know owning our own business, like business goes well, you're stressed but happy. Business doesn't go well, you're stressed and slightly less happy. And there's varying degrees, but that stress never really goes away. So it'd be great to get your view on like what you've seen over the last 5 years. You're working with a lot of, typically it is people in high pressure scenarios, high pressure positions. What are your sort of top three tips to someone to like get that headspace and sort of a bit of clarity and figure out how they move forward?
I think for me, the biggest one is, and because it all ties in together, like work, family, home, whatever, health. I think for some reason we don't realize the impact our physical and mental state, like how we take care of ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, has on everything else. And so, like, it's not the only thing, but putting yourself in a physically, mentally, emotionally sharper, better place, you feel more balanced, more present, you feel good about yourself, well, then you can be resilient to whether work's good, bad, kids are sick, whatever. But that's predicated on you and your state, your energy, how you feel. So I think that's the first point. And in my experience, when you get someone so they can look after themselves in amongst the madness, in amongst the chaos, and they are taking better care of themselves, all of a sudden, life, work, everything feels better. So you can even, the thing I buzz off most as a coach is like, not that I want everyone to go through hardship all the time, but like it's like they went, that was a shit week, but I feel good. And like and it's like, the way I like to think about it is like a lighthouse in the storm. It's like there's stuff going on, but we're resilient within that. And so I guess your question was what, like, top two or three things would you look at? And I think it's actually real basic foundational stuff, which again, we don't really give credit for. So, to give yourself headspace and bandwidth, like having boundaries and structure around your time. So I think one of the key ones is technology use, and like, having some boundaries and structure around how you use your phone, not having it in your bedroom, having times where you put it down and delineate it. And I think I've never worked with a single client in the universe ever goes, I wish I was on my phone more. Right? Said no one ever. But I think, again, if we're busy, stressed, tired, overwhelmed, we feel like we need to be over and on top of everything all the time. And so you can breed this thing where you need to be on 24/7. Actually, that makes things worse. Like I say, like you become the author of your own chaos, right? So I think having some structure around that, but then very, very fundamentally, like just taking care of yourself physically. So doing some form of very basic, consistent movement and exercise every day. Now you go, oh, I got time to go to the gym. Can you do one push-up when you get out of bed? Of course I can. So then everyone's got time to exercise. And that might sound a bit trite and patronizing, but it really isn't, because what I experience with a lot of gents is like, look, I just don't have time. It's like, okay, well, could you do 10 push-ups when you get out of bed? Well, of course I can. Do that 7 days a week, feel a bit better. Well, maybe have a cold shower after that to blow the cobwebs out. Okay. Right. And even that, just that, right, done consistently, that's better than nothing. But then equally, you've done a win for the morning. You've done a bit of exercise. You've blown the cobwebs out. You've done something difficult with a cold shower. You don't have to do cold showers, by the way. But then no matter what the day does, you've done something for you. And so I think the big thing is recognizing it doesn't need to be big stuff. It's little things just compounded have a profound, powerful impact. There's a few guys just come through the first phase of the program recently, and they're all going, so what's the key learning? Like, it's not big stuff. It's just simple little things, but done consistently. And so, but I think you, the royal us, one's ego, we think, and we've probably got ways that worked when we were younger, and you go, well, what's doing 5 push-ups, a cold shower, and then maybe just sitting with my eyes closed for 5 minutes going to do? Well, actually quite a lot. You know, what is telling my wife exactly how I feel and what I need so I can find a better balance with how we run the mornings so we're both on the same page going to do rather than ignoring it, grinding it out and just chuntering. Well, quite a lot. And so like some little things can have quite a profound outsized impact. A really simple one is doing some steps, right? Like I had a chat with a guy the other day and I was like, part of what we do is steps. And he's like, oh, what's the point in that? It's pointless. Only unfit people focus on steps. I was like, okay, that's what I think. But my challenge to that would be, if you're working through the day back to back, like the whole day, there are no gaps, there's no breaks whatsoever. And I said, look, we're going to try and do 10,000 steps a day. How's that? It's impossible. It's not, I'm right, you're wrong. It's like, well, perhaps we need to start to look as a pattern interrupt. Well, maybe I shouldn't be working straight the way through. Maybe 20 minutes in the morning to walk my daughter to nursery. Like that'd be quite nice. And maybe 10 minutes after I've eaten some lunch in the middle of the day, just to break it up so I'm more focused. And so again, you never get a straight answer out of me, Tom, as you know, and we've been working together for a while. But I think it's like, and it probably all sounds like a lot of stuff. But I guess my point is, it doesn't need to be big, scary, shiny stuff. If you've got a couple of small things you're able to do consistently, and then you show yourself that you can do them under pressure, it will mean that you yourself are better able and better armed to deal with whatever life's thrown at you. There's a quote, and I won't use the exact word I always use. I'll soften it a bit. There's a quote from Recovery, which is, if you meet 20 knobheads in a day, you're the knobhead, right? And that's because, like, if it feels like everything's stressful, everyone's out to get you, they're coming at you, and that's happening on repeat, perhaps maybe look at yourself. And in my experience, how we turn that round is go, well, actually, do some stuff for me, clear my head a little bit, do a bit of exercise, eat a bit healthier, set some boundaries around work, eat the frog in the day with having a difficult conversation with someone. Same day, you feel very different. Does that answer the question in a very long-winded, roundabout way?
No, definitely. I think like the piece that you're really getting to there is like, if I look at it from a business perspective, particularly to our audience, you might have supplier issues, there might be currency or interest rate fluctuations, there might be cash flow issues, you might be thinking, how am I going to make payroll at the end of the month? All those things are going to be there regardless of how you treat yourself, your family, your surrounding. And actually, by giving yourself the best possible chance from a health, from a family, from a mental mindset perspective, to carry through the best version of you through that difficult period in the workplace, gives you much more headspace, much more time, much more clarity to deal with those issues. And I think, like, quite often, like the thing that you and I always talk about is like, when things get hard, people go into this mode of like, you either bury your head in the sand, don't want to hear it, or you go the other way where it's like pedal like mad, try and get out of this situation. And actually creating space in the day, creating family time, creating like mental sort of breaks, physical, exercise that creates like a nice little endorphin rush, something that like keeps you like a little bit more balanced, like that gives you the time to then problem solve and to think about those problems
Exactly.
in a different way. And you're not always in that high stress cortisol environment. You're actually taking yourself out and giving yourself chance to process subconsciously, these are the things I'm dealing with, and potentially get to different outcomes.
Yeah, because I think if you wanted to best deal with a difficult situation, um, being in the best that you can be physically, mentally, emotionally, having some headspace and bandwidth, well, then you're going to deal with it better. Like if it was an athlete, right? Let's say there's an athlete and he's about to go and run 400 meters on the track, right? And he woke up, snoozes his alarm 3 times after drinking a load of booze the night before, eating Nutella sandwiches till midnight, doom scrolling on YouTube, shouted at his missus because she was telling him he's on his phone too much because he's sending emails to his coach. Next something really sugary and eats a pan of chocolate, then turns up at the track. How well is he going to perform? Right? Probably not very well. Why is that any different from a fractional CFO that's about to walk through the office? It's no different, right? And I'm using that as an extreme example because you can sort of see it and polarize it, right? And I'm not judging people who are in that situation. But when you say, well, what about the guy that wakes up after a decent night's sleep, got to bed at a normal time, didn't drink any alcohol in the evening, leans over, gives his missus a kiss, plays with his daughter first thing because he's balanced, puts a shirt on that he feels comfortable in, walks out the door bang on time, walks through the office. Which version is going to deal with that day better? And it's obvious, right? But that's what I meant at the start when I said sometimes we sort of disconnect these two different things, and so when you're in the stress and in the madness, we just think, oh, I've just got to get on with it. But actually, if we just took a bit of time to do a little bit for ourselves, well, then you're going to deal with everything else in a better way. And I think that speaks to probably one of the things I should have said really was, and it's a bit meta, but what's the thing that helps? And it's some form of self-reflection, and being intentional around what you do. So just thinking a little bit about what am I going to do for myself? How's my day going to look? And being able to reflect on how it's gone. A little bit of that is so incredibly powerful because you're not then just being ragged around and buffeted by what happens. And then, of course, there's a load of elements that go into helping you then do what you need to do. But if you're able to take a step back, look at things, and then be intentional with your time and what you're going to do, well, then I think that leads to a better, healthier, richer, happier life, but also it leads to better performance at work. There's no question, right?
Yeah, mate, I agree, and I think like a lot of people would look at some of the things that we're talking about now and say like, oh, well, I've tried that or I've done that, and it's like, well, if your answer is to continue to do the same thing every day, then you're just going to get the same results. It's like the definition of madness, isn't it? Like same thing every day and expect a different result. And I think sometimes like just micro changes can really impact. I think something that you and I talked about a few years ago, which I implemented a long time ago now, was a massive benefit is, get out when you're speaking to members of staff, or it might be suppliers or customers, like go out and have a walk, like have a conversation, like outside while walking. It's a bit more active, it's more exercise, but actually being out in the environment, fresh air, like it's human nature to open up more. You're not in that like combative office environment. You're not sat opposite a desk. It's like you're together in a big open space, nice open air,
Mm.
and it creates like a more open and more
Totally.
challenging conversation. So I think that even like tiny changes like that, like, if you're not looking at a screen, go and do it outside. Like many business owners, many CFOs, FDs, etc., could start doing those team meetings slightly differently and have a massive benefit from day one.
Yeah, and there's research into that. Our Lord and Savior, Dr. Andrew Huberman, like, so one of the things he talked about, and I heard that was the where that comes from, that walking and getting clear and having probably, and I'm sure you'd agree, better, more productive meetings in that environment. Something to do with it's called optic flow. So when you're walking, your brain is sort of half. So the part of it has to be focused on the walk that's happening, and it's called forward ambulation. The movement you're having switches off a part of your brain, so you're in a more receptive, open state. And they discovered this from therapy years ago. Serious trauma victims would find it really difficult to open up, and so they're sat on this, the psychiatrist's couch, and then they go, "Let's go for a walk," and all of a sudden they're talking about lots of stuff. Like what happens then? They've since done like brain imaging and stuff around this, and it's something to do with that forward motion. And so, for a healthy, productive conversation, if it's practical, I mean, it's been pissing down for the last month, so maybe not so much at the moment, but you'll probably have a more productive meeting and you'll be more open because of those reasons. But even not for that, just being out and about talking is a nice thing to do. You get some steps and you're being healthy, and so you're sort of ticking a couple of boxes. And so it's what that speaks to again though is that looking at things a bit more laterally, a bit more objectively. It's like, I can't get 10,000 steps in, I can't do any steps. It's impossible. I'm too busy because I've got meetings. Well, there we go. We've just solved it. And so, not being so defeatist in your thinking about what you can do and going, what can I do? And it might not be the exact perfect thing you want to do, but equally it's something. There's something that we discussed, Tom, once, I think, which I still use as an analogy now, and it resonates. And it's like this idea of having like different day types, and you use golf as an analogy, right? So like you've got an A-day game where you're like, right, you rock up, you perfect drive, it's like 1 inch from the hole, like, right, I'm going to reduce my handicap today. It's one of those days, right? And there's a game that you'll play around that, the sort of shots you'll take. Then there's a B day, you hit it, goes off to the right a little bit, it's a bit wonky. It's not, you're like, well, today I can learn a little bit, that's it. And then there's a C, you go doof, and it just dinks into the car park. You're like, right, the games you play on those days will be different, and there's something you can get out of each of them, but it's relevant to that day. You're not going to do an A game day on a C game day, and you're not going to do a C game on an A game. If we think about life like that as well, there's certain days with like you've got back-to-back meetings, the board's gone pear-shaped, your daughter's been sick all night, your wife has to X, Y, Z. Right, well then on that day, that's going to massively diminish some of the things I can do. Doesn't make me a piece of shit, doesn't make me a bad person. The things that I need for my self-care, so we'll have to reduce those and I'll condense. Now, that doesn't mean that that's a bad day. It's high performance relative to the situation you're in, and you do what you can then. Then on a day when it's calm and great, you can do other things, that's it. And so, again, being able to flex and flow between different states relative to what's going on, rather than there's just one binary way you drive it on it like a robot or nothing. I think
Yeah.
that's also what allows this stuff to breathe, because the one guarantee in life is you're going to have problems, life's going to be difficult, and shit things are going to happen, right? So if we take that as given, right, well then what we want, I think we want to optimize for that. And then anything better, we're laughing, right? And so that's just the approach, right?
Yeah, I get that, and it's that piece as well of like the most pain and suffering in human life comes from trying to control things that are completely uncontrollable.
Totally.
But actually, when you step back and look at all the things you can control, which you aren't, if you do that exercise, great example would be, your biggest competitor halves their pricing and just completely bumps you out of the market. Absolutely nothing you can do. Like, you can game plan, you can scenario plan, you can stress test, you can crisis manage, but actually, like, if you're prepped, if you've done all the things you can, and that happens, there's not a lot you can do. You've just got to react and put the best planning process and crack on. But quite often, like, people are trying to control that, and that's impossible to control. However, how you wake up in the morning, how you interact with your family, how you feel when you get home, all those interactions in the workplace, those interactions with other suppliers, other customers, that's all within your gift. And I think
Totally.
quite often we blow up a day because we go, oh, this thing has happened, and it doesn't suit me. I couldn't control it, and therefore it's blown my whole day up. It's like, actually, well, all the things that you can control, like, focus on those. Like, that's what creates, like, this ABC game. And, like, if you can be on your A game and all bits that, like, really matter, your sleep, your nutrition, your mental headspace, your capacity, the other things that you can't control actually become much more manageable. You can think clearer, you can pivot more, you can do more things. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. It's, and I guess the control piece is interesting because I think we often, um, focus on and worry about and put so much energy into what we can't and forget about what we can. And it's almost you need to sort of flip that on its head sometimes, right? And it's not to say those things aren't stressful, but there's always a choice there. And so it's recognizing that okay, that's happened. And if you go, well, that's happened, so therefore this is bad, I'm going to shout, and you have a litany of behaviour that isn't great. Well, then you've just handed all your power. That competitor that's just half the prices. They're winning on all fronts because you're losing your mind. You're not doing anything else, and so, well, why hand all that over? Just go, that is really shit. What can we do? Let's put that in play. On we go. And and just to be totally clear, but we both agree, Tom, none of us are perfect on this. And we're sitting here, I'm not saying like anything to be bad. I'm like, yeah, great, let's go. Like, that's not how it works. But I think the more we can be in that sort of headspace, look at your part in it and what you can do, I think it just leads to feeling better and operating better, right? And you will make better decisions if you're able to be objective and just not react in that kind of way and control what you can.
Yeah, no, agreed. And mate, I've really enjoyed this chat. I think people get a lot out of it. And obviously, as we go through this year, there's a significant amount of, like, geopolitical risk, economic risk. People are going to have headwinds that they've not expected. And post COVID, it feels like every 3 months there's a black swan event. I think when I started in the industry, it's like a black swan event was described to me as a one in 100 year, 1 in 100 year activity. They're happening every, like, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So that external stress, those uncontrollables, is all going up. So I think if people can take one or two things away, I mean, for me, the two or three things that I would take out of this conversation is, one, focus on the things that you can actually control, and turn up in the best possible way for those, whether that's health, family, nutrition, sleep, all those things are going to contribute, like, positively. Two, it's understanding your limitations and planning for those, and having that self-reflection and that introspection. And then three, it's like, it doesn't have to be, no one's asking you to become a Tibetan monk who meditates for 4 hours a day to find enlightenment and only drinks water, and that's not it. It's like couple of small changes. It might be getting out and doing that one-to-one a day outside in the park, or it might be actually saying, you know what, on a Sunday night, I'll probably knock that bottle of red on the head after the Sunday roast because actually I want to turn up better on a Monday. Those one or two tiny changes have a massive lasting impact. So they're the sort of the three things for me that really resonate.
I'd agree with all those. You said it better than I could. So, yes.
Perfect. And where can people get hold of you if they're interested in the 1%?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So if you just look up Luke Doran 1%, that'll be me. The website, the one-percent.com. And then there's a podcast, the 1% as well. If you just search for that on Spotify, my lovely face will pop up. So anywhere there, thank you.
It's a great podcast as well. I think a lot of the lads and the girls come out of the experience with different takeaways, but quite often we all agree on those key things. And I think, it's interesting hearing other people's experiences, because some people come at it from a health angle, some people from a work angle, some people from a family angle, and all those things together, actually, there's a set of principles that once followed and mindful of, like, it all becomes a lot easier.
Yeah,
So.
there's massive commonality. I think that's the point. I think, like, often where you come from it might be slightly disparate, but actually the problems and then the solutions and what we work on, there's huge commonality. And I think that's sort of reassuring because, it's not just me. so it's okay, right? We're all going through it.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us, Luke, and hopefully we'll get you on again in future, and we'll hopefully see you at a couple of our events as well.
Definitely look forward to it. Cheers, mate.